Welcome back, Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios, and it is Monday, another practice report. We were out there today. We finally went to practice, got the invite for practice number 4. Welcome back, everybody. That's us, Eddie and George right here. I'm on the right, he's on the left.
As always.
I guess it is as always.
Yeah.
Good times, though, out there today. Obviously, we talked to Brent Venables on Saturday, but today was kind of the first time that we were able to go out there for about 15 minutes, and I guess it was more about 20 minutes. We'll give them a little bit of slack there, but able to get out there to practice today, see a couple of the sights, if you will. Not a whole lot to be gleaned out of.
Half of it was stretching.
Yeah, which is what it is. We'll take it as we can get. It was good to be back out there, though. We did talk to Jackson Arnold today, talked to Jovantae Barnes, who we're both going to highlight today, talked to Jacob Sexton, as well as Gentry Williams, which was both interesting conversations. We're going to highlight them here on the back end of the week. Obviously, we're going to start with Jackson Arnold and Jovantae Barnes today. First things first, though, what did you think of the open practice today? Anything stick out to you just in terms of some of the guys that we were able to see?
It was good to get out there for sure. You'd always love to see all of practice, right?
Sure.
But just to see guys going through drills, I think Andrell Anthony was obviously a big storyline. Getting to see him actually kind of go through some wide receiver drills, catch some balls, things like that, see him cut. That was something I was interested in. Jovantae Barnes has been a big story. Getting to see him out there, he is their most impressive back physically, at least it looks like. Out there, offensive line, who's leading drills, things like that. It's the guys that we would suspect. The defensive line kind of sizing them up, and then Zach Alley, kind of getting to see him in his element, coaching up those linebackers. I thought was super intriguing.
It was good. I mean, obviously, I'm running around trying to get as much video as possible in that short time period. But Jaden Jackson, David Stone, some of those guys that we saw.
Jaden Jackson looks incredible.
Very good.
As a true freshman, it's pretty unbelievable how he looks.
Him is along with Dejon Terry, and we're able to see Dominic Williams for the first time in an Oklahoma
not a tall
uniform
guy
today. No, not a tall guy, but I think that when you look at
thick.
the tape and everything that he brings from TCU, it seems like him and Terry are going to be really good options inside. Obviously, you want to see a little bit more from Grayson Halton. We talked about that. Spent a little bit of time with some of the wide receivers today. Certainly, I think Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson, both look like guys that have really developed themselves physically from a year ago.
Yeah. How about Caden Woolard? That's the other one I would mention just real quickly.
He's always the lost guy. We
don't talk about him enough
on the field. Just exactly.
We have not been talking about him because it's because some of that room, there's so many big names, right? Ethan Downs is back. R. Mason Thomas is a guy that we all think can be a really good player. PJ Adebawore gets a lot of the attention. The freshman, Danny Okoye, Nigel Smith. Don't sleep on Caden Woolard. He definitely looks the part. I think he's going to play a lot this year. And again, was super productive. I know it was at Miami, Ohio, but if he can come in and get him a few sacks this season, I think he's a guy that could be a contributor that maybe we aren't talking enough about.
I mean, at some point when you are, I think, top 5 in the country in returning players that were sack leaders a year ago, I don't care what conference you're in. At some point, you have to just be a football player, right, and go make plays. And maybe that does come together for somebody like that. It'll be interesting when we're able to talk to somebody like a Caden Woolard, because I don't even think that we've talked to him since he arrived in Norman.
I don't think so. Well, he did at the media day in
the
spring.
Some spring stuff.
Yes,
okay.
But other than that, we have not spoken to him.
It'll be good to talk to him at some point, you would hope, here, over the next month, and just kind of get an idea of what that summer program was like. I think if there was one thing that we really have heard a lot about, and Jovantae talked about it today. I know that it was somebody last week that talked about just how tough. I think it was Nick Anderson that talked about
Nick,
how tough this summer was with Jerry Schmidt, which I feel like we're always kind of coming back to that point at somehow, some way.
Every year they're like, this was the toughest summer ever, but it does seem like maybe they did some different things this summer. Some different things were emphasized, I think. So, it is interesting to hear that some of these guys, especially guys like a Jovantae Barnes or Nick Anderson that have now been in the program several years, I think that it kind of speaks to a little bit of that culture change we always hear about.
No doubt. Before we get into Jackson Arnold and Jovantae Barnes from our conversations with them on Monday, some really exciting news here to SoonerScoop.com. As you can see behind us here, after a long courtship, Home Field Apparel has joined with us. They are now the official OU apparel partner of SoonerScoop.com, and some really exciting stuff coming up over the next month, specifically August 9th for Home Field Apparel. The football box, obviously, first things first, if you don't know what home field apparel is, I think that if you've ever seen any of the vintage T-shirts, college T-shirts, they're
slanted
super
OU.
cool.
Like I'm looking at their website right now, and you can see it up here on screen. But they've got the throwback slanted OU. I really like the basketball one there, the Oklahoma Sooners logo with the basketball
kind
going
of that
through.
Throwback, that like 80s, maybe early 90s look.
Right. They've got softball stuff on here too. They've got the scripted bomber jacket, throwback play like a champion today T-shirt. So they've got a lot of the kind of throwback old stuff that I think is really in style these days, and you'll see a lot of people rocking them on game days or just out at the bars or wherever.
Absolutely. And coming up on August 9th, the Can't Miss Kickoff 2024 campaign with Home Field. All you got to do is go to homefieldapparel.com for more information, and you're going to get some really cool stuff out of this, right?
Yeah, no, you're going to get, I think it's 3 never-before-seen items for your school. So that could be, T-shirts or koozies or things like that no one else will have. And like we said, it's really the vintage stuff that's super cool. And they're coming out with new designs all the time. I know our good friends Joe and Isaac over in the family business is going to be rocking some of that apparel here soon. We're going to have some here in the studio that you guys can check out too. But make sure you guys go to homefieldapparel.com and you guys can sign up for that campaign. Like Eddie said, it's kind of a month-long thing, but it launches August 9th at 10 Eastern time.
So that'd be 9 o'clock Central.
Yep.
And as you can see up in the right-hand corner, promo code SCOOP, that is SCOOP for 50% off of your first order. And that football box, it sounds like it's going to be really cool because it's 3 items that have never been released before from Home Field, which, I think if you're kind of getting ready for the season, there's probably no better way to get ready for that than by visiting homefieldapparel.com. Remember that promo code up in the right-hand corner, SCOOP for 15% off of your first order. So really looking forward to the partnership with Home Field Apparel. I've always kind of been a big fan of them, and even some of the OU stuff that isn't there, if you're just looking for, I know that I bought like an Indiana State basketball shirt, which was pretty cool, and it's obviously really comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. So let's jump into it today. Did talk to Jackson Arnold, and I think it's going to be the theme of the week, right, or the theme of every practice report when we are talking about Oklahoma offensively. If you don't want to talk about the offensive line, we are going to talk about Jackson Arnold, and I think it's first things first, like just kind of a natural progression from what we've seen here over the last couple months, specifically going back into December with Jackson, and kind of going into a role where this is his team.
Yeah, I think you can tell he's a lot more comfortable. And I feel like we've said that several times, but it seems like every single time we talk to him, whether it was, after spring practice last year or the spring game, SEC media days this summer or even today, like you can just tell that he knows that he's the starting quarterback, and he knows that everyone is expecting him to play great and be great and lead this offense. And you hear it from other guys on the team. Jovantae Barnes talked a lot about his growth, not just as a player, and we'll get into the player stuff here in a little bit, but I think the leadership part of it, it's very clear. Look, he's not ever going to be Baker Mayfield or maybe even Dylan Gabriel, guys that are super vocal, but I do think that he has a certain presence about him, a certain confidence that he's kind of expressed, especially recently, that makes you go, okay, like this guy knows it's his team. He knows what he has to do to go out and be successful, and now he just has to kind of go prove it.
Here is Jackson Arnold, specifically talking about being the guy at Oklahoma and going into this 2024 season with the expectations that come with being the quarterback at Oklahoma.
Just block it out. I mean, I know, Woody Washington sent me a tweet from, or a DM from, it was a quote from Kobe, and it said, it's only pressure if you put it on yourself. So, I mean, really just blocking it out, not putting pressure on yourself, and just staying level-headed.
Brent said the other day that your decision-making is a lot better maybe this fall than what it was in the spring. How's that something you work on in the off-season? Is it something that you just need reps, or is it watching film? Like, how do you get better at that?
Yeah, you can watching film definitely helps, but at the end of the day, you got to go out and execute and play ball. And I feel like for me, it's doing walkthroughs. I wish we had one of those VR goggles where you can see the defense, but it's doing walkthroughs. It's just envisioning the defenses in your head, and really it's just getting reps, going out in fall camp, but just getting as many reps as you can, just being clean, taking care of the ball, and making good decisions.
Jackson, I remember you talking at the Alamo Bowl saying that you felt like last year's team was obviously somewhat Dylan's team. Mm-hmm. And I know in the spring you started to feel like it was starting to become your team. Do you still feel that way, that you've kind of stepped into that leadership role and that this has kind of become your team that now that you're a few days into fall camp?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and just building on that is huge. I'm obviously getting with those guys, connecting with those guys, creating that chemistry with those guys is going to be huge this fall camp. You know, we play a game in, 3.5 weeks, so getting those guys on the same page and just being a unit is going to be the biggest thing for us going to that first game.
Do you find yourself being more vocal in certain moments, or are you still trying to?
More vocal for sure, and that was something that was harped on me by Coach Luttrell, Coach Finley, Coach Smitty in the offseason, just being louder, being more vocal for those guys.
Bad angle of me.
No, that's a great angle. You look good back there.
Thank you.
Definitely look tan. It's one of those things, too, that I think that, he is a lot more comfortable, obviously. And, they wrapped up literally their fourth practice today.
Yep.
But at the same time, I do think that when you look at this offense and everything that goes into it, it all starts with him. Obviously, the offensive line is going to be important, but to get where this offense needs to be, that Jackson Arnold is going to have to be the guy.
And it's hard to sit here because I think a lot of people want to ask you and me and other people, can Jackson Arnold be the guy? Is he going to be able to do it? And I think our answer every time is like, we think so, right? And
I think my answer usually is eventually he's going to be really good. Like I have no doubt that this guy's going to be one of those next quote unquote great quarterbacks at Oklahoma.
The thing is he's got to get the reps, and that was kind of what I was trying to ask him. Is like we all know he can throw the ball, we all know he can run, and we've said it over and over on here. It's can he make the right decision, and that's not to say that he can't, throw, a 50-yard bomb down the field. I think he's going to connect on some huge plays this year. But when it's 3rd and, 8 or whatever, can you hit the check down, right? If nobody else is open, can you hit the check down that maybe can pick up the first down?
And can you not be greedy enough to take that check down and not try to make that big play?
Can you scramble when it's right? Can you stay in the pocket, an extra half second and deliver a ball down the field? Like those little things in a game that make the game, that's the part that you wonder about with him. And so I think that's been a big emphasis for him all offseason is trying to replicate those situations. I know they're doing a lot of that in fall camp, putting a lot of pressure on him, giving him a lot of different looks to force him to make the right decision. And I've heard that he's sometimes made the right decision and other times maybe hasn't made the right decision, right? And so I think until he gets on the field and shows us it's hard to say like, oh, we know he's gonna do that. So, and I think it's hard for him too because it's different doing it in practice against the guys versus guys that you don't know or that you're preparing one week and then the next week you're preparing for a different defense. So I think that for Jackson, again, I've said it a lot, but you got to be patient with him. He's going to grow a lot this year and he's going to have some ups and downs. But ultimately, I think that his talent is going to win out. And I also think he's a really smart player. And so I think he's starting to really develop in that area. It just takes time. It's not something that just clicks for everybody right away.
And it's one of those things too that like Brent talked about on Saturday that we spoke on and we highlighted at the end of the Brent Venables recap on Saturday here on the YouTube channel was the fact that like he threw that interception to Peyton Bowen. Yep. Was that a spectacular play and was that very well covered on the back end because of Oklahoma secondary? Obviously.
Yeah. And I think that again, we don't know how that play unfolded.
Sure.
Like was this a 2-minute drill where you're trying to make a play down the
Brent
field.
said that it was like they just disguised it really well.
Right.
Which and ultimately will help Jackson Arnold.
Also, 99% of the time, Peyton Bowen doesn't make a one-handed grab like that.
Right.
Like, that it's one of those things that sometimes happens, right?
Yeah.
And I think that those plays are going to happen, and sometimes the defense is just going to make a better play than you. And, I think back to the Alamo Bowl, that happened a couple times where Arizona just made a great play on a ball. So, again, all of this it's early in fall camp. It's 4 days in, so I can't sit here and tell you Jackson Arnold's going to go win the Heisman Trophy this year. But I do think he has a lot of talent and has the potential to be really great. And it does sound like so far through fall camp, he's taken the right steps to develop the way that they want him to.
I can already see it in the comment section. There they are defending Jackson Arnold's turnovers yet again, just like the Alamo Bowl.
I will say from what I've heard in practice, there haven't been a ton of turnovers.
Sure.
The Peyton Bowen interception is one that we know about. I know that there was maybe one other. Other than that, there haven't been a ton. And look, you're talking about a lot of reps in practice, so you're going to be throwing the ball a lot. But I do know this. He's thrown more touchdowns than interceptions in practice, so that's a good thing.
That's a positive thing. Very good analyst there.
Yeah.
That's a good analysis of everything.
You want to throw more
happening.
touchdowns than interceptions, which he did not do in the Alamo Bowl.
Start working our way back.
Yeah,
we're working our way back. What about the guys around him? Obviously, this was the first time that we had talked to Jackson here since the start of camp. And let's just go into a little bit of kind of the guys around him and everything that you kind of took from what he was able to describe today.
Yeah, I think you have to start at the receiver position. Obviously, Deion Burks is somebody that I think is going to be a huge factor in this. You look at Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson, Brennan Thompson's a name that's starting to come up, I think, a little bit more. J.J. Hester, I know, is somebody that has performed well through camp so far. So, obviously, you have a lot of talent at receiver. Andrel Anthony, Jalil Farouk working their way back from injury, which is great news. But I think it's the tight end position. We heard Jackson talk about getting Jake Roberts back, today and really in fall camp. He's a guy that missed the spring, but has played a lot of football, one of the more experienced guys on the team. Also has played in Seth Luttrell's offense, so, he knows what Seth's looking for, what they're trying to do. I think that's probably helped this group out a lot, especially a guy like Bauer Sharp, who we all think has the athleticism and ability to be dynamic in this offense, but maybe could use somebody like a Jake Roberts who can kind of say, hey, this is what they're trying to, this is what they want you to do on this play, whatever it is. I think that group could be a difference maker this year, and not so much that they have this just a first round tight end. They don't have Brock Bowers necessarily, but I do think they have better athletes there than they did a year ago. Again, don't want to knock Austin Stockner, but I just feel like they can do more in the passing game this year, and I think that that's something Seth Luttrell's going to want to do, and it sounds like so far those guys have kind of worked their way into the mix.
What did you make of just talking about install stuff with Seth Luttrell versus Jeff Lebby? I know that was something that you asked of Jackson today, and you'll see here in just a second.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because every offensive player we've asked that to has just been like, well, there's not a whole lot of difference, right? And I think that that's really interesting because we just don't know what to expect from Seth Luttrell. I think it's going to be this marriage between the air raid and the spread, and I think they're going to get back to some outside zone concepts in the run game, but passing game, I still think they're going to do a lot of things down the field. They're going to want to throw the ball deep, which was something Lebby liked to do. They're also going to run some jet sweeps. They're going to throw the ball to the boundary, let their playmakers make plays, which if you're throwing screen passes to Deion Burks, that's probably a good thing. He's going to make a guy miss in space. So I think you're still going to see some of that. So I don't think it's been too complicated. And I think having Seth in that quarterback room last year, he worked very closely with the quarterbacks during practice a year ago. I think that's going to help Jackson Arnold tremendously. They have a very close relationship. And so I think that it's been a pretty smooth transition so far. I think there's probably some verbiage that they have to work through, but overall, the offense is still going to do some of the same stuff that they did a year ago.
Here is Jackson Arnold talking about just kind of the first couple days of practice, getting back out there with his wide receivers, his tight ends, as well as his relationship with Seth Luttrell as they continue this install here, and I guess officially the first week of practice.
As Coach V says, iron sharpens iron. So I feel like offense and defense has been getting after it so far, been going back and forth. It's been really good and really competitive.
Jackson, how's your growth coming along as you get into fall camp here?
I think it's been good, and it's something I focused on in spring ball, after the bowl game, during spring and during summer, just getting close to those guys, building that leadership, just being one unit. I feel like right now we're playing really solid right now and being very competitive. Yeah, it's a deep wide receiver group. You got studs from left all the way to my right. Dudes that can go out and get the ball, can flat out play, can flat out fly. I'm going to need to rely on those guys this year to go out and make plays for me, and at the same time they're going to need to rely on me to go out and give them good balls. So I think the world of that group, and they're playing very competitive right now.
What's it been like learning with Seth so far, and what's been maybe the biggest learning curve? Is there anything totally different with this offense?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a big learning curve with Coach Luttrell, but obviously he's a different person than Lebby, different personality, maybe calls some things different than Lebby, focuses more on certain things than Lebby would. So I wouldn't say it's a learning curve, but just kind of getting to know Coach Luttrell and seeing what he likes and how he likes to call a game has been big for me this fall camp. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for our tight end room right now is just having Jake back, finally practicing and getting, pushing Bauer, and we can go, if you want to throw two tight ends in, we can throw two tight ends in and just go out and play our game. And I think having those two guys and rotating them around is going to be very versatile for us and help us out in the trenches.
Does their experience show up?
For sure. Yeah, Jake's played a lot of ball, Bauer's played a lot of ball. And it shows, they have a certain savviness to the dudes that have that experience that, over guys that maybe haven't got a snap yet.
Obviously, a lot of excitement about that tight end room. I'm particularly excited. I know we saw him a little bit during the not even a little bit. We saw him a lot during the spring game. But I've heard that the connection between number 11 and number 6 could be pretty significant for Oklahoma. Obviously, talking about Deion Burks.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be able to do a lot of different things with him. Like I said, they're going to throw him screen passes. They're going to run jet sweeps with him. I think they're going to throw the ball deep to him. I think they're going to do a lot of crossing routes with him where, he's coming all the way across the field and just using his speed to get open. You're going to see a lot of Deion Burks. And so that's super exciting. I think Jaquez Petaway is going to get a lot more run this year. I think he's going to be more of a contributor, kind of playing that backup spot behind Burks. But again, like I said, I think the tight end room is really interesting because not only do you have Sharp and Roberts, but does Devon Mitchell enter the mix? I don't think so. I don't know if he's ready yet, but maybe a Caden Helms comes back from injury, a Cade McIntyre. Those are guys that tight end room just is totally different. That was one of my takeaways, Eddie, just walking around practice. Because I remember last year we went out to fall camp. Yeah, and we would watch them and we're like, oh boy, they don't have anybody at tight end. And this year you walk in and they're like, okay, you could, talk me into 3 or 4 guys, playing this year and catching passes and being contributors. So that's the group that I think could maybe be a little bit more of a difference maker.
It's super fascinating to me too. Just just real quick about the wide receiver position is just like how different every one of those body styles are, and there's a lot more taller guys than just Nick Anderson and Jaden Gibson now. Obviously, Ivan Carry-On is just, physically. I think he's ready. It's going to be a question of how does he get into that rotation? How many guys do they even want to have in that rotation in Emmett Jones' room going into the season? Obviously, that's the kind of stuff that, hopefully we get some of those answers here moving forward. And I promise to God, I'm not obsessed with this storyline, but we did talk to Jovantae Barnes today, and I thought it was kind of revealing. Obviously, we heard about it on Saturday or heard from Brent Venables talking about Jovantae Barnes, and he mentioned that he had, kind of spoke to the team. At least, stood up and gave a little bit of a testimony in what happened a year ago. He didn't get into it specifically today, but I think we kind of hit it on what we said Saturday. There was a little bit of a mixture of physical ailment as well as a mental, roadblock or whatever you want to call it, and getting back to 100%.
Yeah, look, I don't think he ever felt 100% physically last year, and then I think it was a situation where maybe he felt like he needed to rush back and get back because he was, either going to lose his spot or, whatever it may be. And I think then it became, once he came back and he wasn't able to perform at the level that he wanted to, it then became a mental thing for him where he's like, am I ever going to be able to be like I was as a freshman? And I think that my big takeaway, Eddie, is one, yes, on the field, like he looks great out there. Until we see him in, full pads and actually running the football, it's hard to tell. But I do think, Eddie, Britt having him speak, him talking today, talking about his loyalty to DeMarco Murray and the program, I think it kind of speaks to the type of culture that Britt is setting in the program. Like, that was kind of my takeaway, was like, this is what Britt wants. He wants guys to stay. He wants guys to stick it out. Guys that could easily transfer and probably go play somewhere else. Like Jovantae Barnes could have entered the portal, and I'm sure a lot of Power 5 schools would have come after him, even though he didn't have a great year last year. He could have easily done that and been penciled in as a starter somewhere else, but he wanted to stick it out. He loves DeMarco Murray. The confidence that was expressed in him from, DeMarco, especially DeMarco, but also Brent, I think kind of speaks volume to the program and their belief in a guy that they recruited from, day one. So I think that, it was great to hear kind of Jovantae's side of it. And like you said, we're not obsessed with this storyline, but I do think it's kind of one of those things early in fall camp that's pretty cool to kind of pay attention to.
I'm slowly kind of turning in the gears into, I think Jovantae Barnes is going to be a big part of this.
I think definitely listening to him, you're like, yeah, this guy gets it. He's a smart guy, smart football player. And he does make you think, okay, he is 100%. He is back to feeling that way. And then the things you hear about him in camp, just enjoying practice, having fun at practice, those sorts of things. Like, I think that's great for him, because I think probably last year there was points where he wasn't having fun anymore.
Right. Here is Jovantae Barnes just kind of talking about everything that he went through as a sophomore, his thoughts moving into his junior season, and also a little bit of Jackson Arnold talking about Jovantae Barnes in the same backfield as him.
He kind of brought me up during the team meeting, and just, I had a pretty good freshman year and, not a so good sophomore year. So he just came up. He wanted me to go up and pretty much just tell the youngest and tell everybody that just came in my journey since I've been here. And I kind of just opened up a lot more of what was going on my sophomore year and how I felt personally, and what I did to kind of just help and get through it and just fight through it. So it was pretty good just to get up there and let the new guys and let the youngest know that, even though you have obstacles, you got to get through it. So that was probably the most important thing that I did to go there.
How are you feeling mentally and physically right now?
Mentally and physically, I feel great. Can't complain. I'm out there working, just trying to go day by day and get better each day.
Yeah, like last year when Jovantae was dealing with injuries, I didn't get to see his full potential or how he really was his freshman year per se, but I feel like right now he's extremely explosive. Just powering through the line, running dudes over. I think he's being very physical right now. It's something that we need from him.
Today's college football world, players will have a bad season and maybe they'll look at going in the portal or changing what they want to do in their career. What made you, after last season, want to come back to OU?
It was no doubt that this is the place I wanted to be. I loved OU ever since I was in high school, ever since DeMarco was recruiting me. So it was not one thought in my mind that I was going anywhere. This is the place I wanted to be. I love this place. So I know DeMarco, since day one, he believed in me, and he let me know ever since I was in high school that I'm going to come in here and he's going to be on me and he's going to make sure I'm working. So just getting that phone call and making sure that he's going to be on my butt, but he's going to make sure I'm going to come back was the number one thing, and I knew I wasn't going nowhere.
When was that phone call?
It was just kind of after the season. Just I was on myself a lot because, like I said, I'm a competitor. I want to, of course, I want to be in, but I'm gonna support my teammates, and just kind of not being able to go in there and do what I can do was kind of the hardest thing. Or when I do go in, I'm not feeling it. So it was just kind of things like that. He'll make sure he check up on me, and he had kind of a rough time in college too, a little bit with injuries and stuff. So he made sure to tell me that I just got to keep going and keep God on my side.
I consider that a big positive moving forward. I think that this officially kind of puts to rest everything. Not to really kind of explain what happened last year, but I think it puts to rest any type of that storyline. It seems like he's 100% both physically and mentally right now. And ultimately, I've almost got to the point where I've talked myself into thinking it'd be very disappointing if we don't see the guy closer to what we saw 2 years ago. That's a fumble. He doesn't need to do that.
I agree. I'm completely on board with you, Eddie. I think we're going to see him a lot. Yeah. If he stays healthy, I think we're going to see him a lot early in the season. That's not to say I saw somebody reply to me the other day and said, so Gavin Sawchuk isn't the starter? And I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. I think Gavin Sawchuk is probably going to be the first.
You need more than one running back.
Yeah.
And by the way, Taylor Tatum's running the hell out of the ball right now.
Yeah. And so, I think that, look, with the running back position, at some point, someone's going to get hurt in that room during the season. It happens every single year.
Or at least nicked up to where you miss maybe a quarter or two
quarters. Or you miss a game or whatever it is. And somebody else is going to have to come in and play a lot more than maybe they typically do. And I think they feel really good about Jovantae Barnes and his experience. And you love the young guys, right? You love a Taylor Tatum and his ability to be dynamic. And I thought it was interesting today. Jackson said they're using him kind of like what I said the other day, out of the backfield, maybe using him in empty sets, putting him in the slot, doing some different things. You love that. But he also hasn't played at this level. Sure. And I know that he was ranked number 1 in the country. And believe me, I think there's a chance at the end of the year you say, yep, he's their best running back. But early in the season, in some of these big games, especially early in the year, you want somebody who's been in some big spots, has played a lot of football, especially at this level. And Jovantae Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk are those two guys. Caleb Hicks is another one that I think is going to get into the mix a little bit.
Caleb Hicks has kind of become the Caden Woolard for me. That when you talk about that running back room, we always talk about Gavin, we talk about Jovantae, we talk about Taylor Tatum, obviously. Where does Caleb Hicks fall into that mix? Because I thought he ran the ball extremely well in the spring game.
Yeah, he did. And I think he had the biggest run in that spring game. And so I think he can fit in. It's just, it's kind of like, well, it's pick your poison. And that's where I really like Jovantae Barnes, is because he kind of does a little bit of everything. He's not going to be your fastest guy. I don't think he's your strongest guy. I think that's probably Caleb Hicks. I don't know if he has the best, juking ability. That's probably Taylor Tatum, all those things. But he does everything kind of just really well, just everything. He's kind of a jack of all trades. And he's also, Eddie, people forget, he's a really good pass protector. And I know DeMarco Murray and Seth Littrell value the hell out of that. And so I think you're going to see him a lot of times be, if it's 3rd and long and you need him to chip a block or something, he's going to be your guy. And so I think that those are kind of the situations that you'll see him in. So, I think Caleb Hicks is a guy that can come in and play, but he might need somebody to either screw up or not play as well or get hurt for him to really jump in and get an opportunity. I'm sure he'll get some in garbage time, and maybe he shines, and they're like, okay, let's give him some time in a closer game. But I do think to start the year, it's certainly going to be Sawchuk and Barnes leading the way, which is what we thought it was going to be last year. And then Sawchuk was hurt, I think, to start the year.
Yeah.
Barnes was clearly not able to be himself, and then it was Tawi Walker out of nowhere was the guy. And Marcus Major got hurt early in the year, too, last year.
And I think if there's one thing, it feels like a little bit like Groundhog's Day that we're back here to where it was. But I think the one thing that we do know, Seth Luttrell wants to run the football. That was something that Jovantae said, from the get-go today. And that's something that, since Seth took over, even going all the way back to December, going into the bowl practices, there is a mindset and a priority that they want to be able to run the football.
Well, he's a former fullback.
Yeah.
And we've brought that up several times, but he's going to want to run the football. He's also going to want to throw it all around the yard. I mean, he comes from the air raid offense, but he's definitely going to run it, and I think they're going to run it a lot. I also think they're going to be a better running football team this year than they were last year, and some of that is just going to be because of Seth Luttrell's scheme. Like, I really like some of the stuff they do with outside zone, and I think that with this offensive line, especially coming together, him and Bill Beatenbow.
We've talked about that marriage with Seth and Bill and their relationship off the field, even having worked on the field together.
They see eye to eye in terms of what they want to do in the run game.
Right.
I don't think Bill and Jeff always saw eye to eye in terms of what they went away from the GT counter, which, Bill Beatenbow is like famous for. They went away from that a lot these last couple years. I think they're going to get back into some of that stuff. I think they're going to get back into some outside zone stuff that, Mike Leach would run back in the day. They'd run at Arizona, Indiana with Kevin Wilson. If you want to know what Seth Luttrell's going to do offensively, I think you need to go watch the old Indiana teams when Kevin Wilson was the head coach there, because I think that's what you're going to see a lot of from Oklahoma.
Very good. We will catch back up with Jacob Sexton as well as Gentry Williams here in the coming days, just in terms of everything that they said on Monday, which, I think is obviously a positive. I continue, and I know that you've reported the same on the Crimson Corner, just as far as Jacob Sexton and Jake Taylor having pretty good camps to date. And then, obviously, I think the sky's the limit for Gentry Williams. I think we both agree about that. So
yeah, he's healthy. I think that's the biggest thing with him and he talked about that today, just being healthy and feeling the best he's ever felt. And then Jacob Sexton, I would be shocked if he's not starting for Oklahoma in some capacity. I don't know exactly where that's going to be, but I think he's one of their best 5 offensive linemen, and Bill Beatenbow is going to find a way to get him on the field.
You can read about the 2 Jakes. I know that Bob Prisbillo wrote about them. You can catch that on SoonerScoop.com. And we will be here as Oklahoma continues. I guess officially they're not a week in yet, but they're 4 practices in. And, fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll be invited back to practice at some point. But if you want to catch any of the interviews from today, Sooner Scoop editorial page, as well as the sights and sounds from today, and plenty more to come as Oklahoma continues their preseason camp. They made the move over to the rugby field. I'm sure you saw
That's when it gets real.
That's when you know that, the camp, quote unquote, camp season is officially here. And before you know it, we're going to be talking about
pads on Wednesday is what I heard.
Is that what it is?
Full pads on Wednesday, scrimmage on Saturday.
You think you could take a form tackle from Danny Stutzman?
No. That would result in a broken bone for sure.
We should try that sometime.
It'd be great.
Maybe that'd be a
great content
type of deal. We shall see. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you right back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page.